gratitude. And you get it every day, whether you get it directly or not. We hear about how great our crews are, and we'll get a chance to pass that along to the crews tomorrow at a training seminar and a luncheon tomorrow. Again, thank you. Mr. Holyfield picked me up at about 5 in the morning in the blizzard. I dug myself out to the end of the driveway, and then I looked at the road, and they'd already been through it a couple times, but there was still another 1.5 feet of snow on it. And I went, I called Chuck. You can't get up here, and they sent the plow up, and we pushed all the way up to the end, and he got me, and we went out plowing for a while, and I'm very impressed. And you guys you were on your 12th hour doing that, and I just can't imagine what you guys go through. So once again, thank you.
Chuck, please tell me you didn't let him do any plowing.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
The only thing I did was reach out and grab the ice off the windshield wipers a few times.
That's perfect.
I think I pulled the wiper off of yours.
Yes.
It's on my bucket list, though. Is there another department?
I just wanted to ask Chuck one question because he is here. Chuck, the under 221 fleet maintenance vehicle acquisition program is still making it happen, and this number seems to stay pretty steady. And
That number is extremely
basically
hard
maintenance.
to keep.
It's not crazy stuff, right?
That number is extremely hard to keep, and actually we've already had to add some money to it this year just to keep up. But without the purchase of the new vehicles, these roads in this town would not look like they do.
I agree.
These new trucks have made a tremendous difference. I can tell you we went through the entire blizzard with 2 very minor problems with trucks, which were fixed relatively quickly, and it didn't require us to lay underneath them in a snowstorm out on the road. So the purchase of these vehicles is making a huge difference in the quality that we can give in our work. And it's the crews that do the work. We're just the ones that everybody sees.
But what made a difference, to your point, so what made a difference in these storms the last couple of years is we have trucks on the road, not in the garage.
Correct.
We have trucks that work, that are well maintained throughout the year, but they're new enough that they're not going to break down halfway through a storm. So during the hurricanes, during the blizzard 2 years ago, during this blizzard, we had guys and we had trucks, and we put them all together, and out they went out of the garage. They didn't sit in the garage waiting for fixes.
No, and I also want to say that it's more than trucks. We came up with a plan to have 4 payloaders and a couple backhoes, and we can put them in different spots of town and leave them there. And that has made, it's just unbelievable the difference it's made with people's cul-de-sacs and intersections and downtown. And Joe's little luncheon tomorrow, the picture that you put on your little thing that came out, it's surreal, actually. The photo, it looks like something out of
It's from Ron's
Nome, Alaska.
Norman Rockwell. But it's payloaders and backhoes and trucks working at 3 o'clock in the morning on Main Street.
Right.
So that's what I'm getting at, is it's more than just, it's the whole concept of being ready to be able to do some of these things.
We've done a lot of things in the last couple of years that we've never been able to do before. We adapted a regular truck plow to go on a backhoe, which allows him to act just like a truck, go to an intersection, but he can clean intersections with that plow much easier than we can any other way. During the blizzard 2 years ago, he was not able to move because of the type of snow we had. He couldn't move around. Well, we put a set of chains on it this year, and he went out and he did all kinds of work with that machine that we could have never done. We bought a snow bucket to put at the community center. We're going to adapt that bucket to go directly on the payloader instead of chaining it on. That's going to be a summer project because we got it so late. We bought a snow blower to go on the back of the Kubota. That has done a tremendous amount of work since we've got it. And I actually believe the Park and Rec used it to clear the boardwalk the other day after not been touched since the blizzard.
Right.
We're using that and the tracklesses to widen roads. The sidewalk crew goes out every day and makes a pass on every sidewalk to clear off whatever we can get. It's the equipment that we have, and the guys are hard to work at it.
Yeah. Well,
Good plan. We'll continue that plan.
Thank you.
It's worked out. Thank you again, Chuck, for your bringing your talents to the service. Is there any other thing? Do you have any other departments, Joe, that you you run and
Not that I'm
look
aware
over?
of.
And,
I just think the guys are just doing a fantastic job. I couldn't be prouder of them. But I also am going to challenge them every day because we can get better. And that's the theme I like to think. We keep on, like after the storm, we did lessons learned and what we can do better. So if you keep having that mindset, we can keep doing better and keep challenging people within the resources we have, we'll even be greater.
These two, in my budget, you'll notice I've put in for 2 capes, superhero capes, and one's going to be for Anna, and one's going to be for Joe. And these guys are superheroes to this town. I mean, it's certainly to me. You know, for a new guy coming in, I rely on you every day, and you're there, and you have the answers, and you get the job done. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I think we're done with you, Joe,
All right, thank you.
and the rest of you. Thanks for coming, supporting the budgets. General government is way up front, right? God, it's such a big book. $114?
GG miscellaneous and benefits, right?
Okay, we, Anna, you feel free to jump in on these budget items. Actually, why don't you start and highlight what we need to know on these?
Okay, so the FICA Medicare, that's directly related to the wages that are in the budget. I will be going through all the departments and the wages again before next Wednesday evening because this account didn't get adjusted for some of the salaries that department heads had put in for that were removed from the budget before submitting it to you. So there will be some form of reduction available for the board to make at your meeting next week. We had discussed the workers' comp and the liability insurance premiums, and we have
Karma handout?
Yeah, we have a Kerma handout which Mr. Nickerson is distributing, and it shows what the amount of the premiums are for this fiscal year and what they are proposing to us for the upcoming 3 fiscal years. We did contact the insurance consultant that we use for our health insurance, and they are in the process of getting other quotes for us on our workers' comp and liability packages. That information will be available for us later this month, and we'll be discussing it, as we go through the budgets with the Board of Finance. The premiums are not, as you see on the handout that's been distributed, are not specifically related to the town. The workers' comp is paid for, it's broken out, the town's portion, there's a Board of Ed portion, and then a portion for water and sewer. And then for the liability insurances, it's the same departments along with the ambulance. They piggyback onto our policy for their coverage for their vehicles. So that's for those 2 items.
Are we charged per vehicle? In other words, we turn in the number of our fleet and our cost is determined based on that?
That's correct. Every year we keep a running list with them. Every time we add on a vehicle or take off a vehicle, we send that information to Kerma. So they'll remove the old vehicle, put the new vehicle on. Then once when we get to the point where we're doing the renewal, they forward to us that list again, and we have to review it and confirm everything is okay. So they do have each of our vehicles listed on the policy.
Listed, but when a vehicle changes, does the price change
Well,
like
at
it
the
does
end-
with an personal auto policy?
What they do at the end of the year is they send us a vehicle reconciliation statement. So it's either we pay more or there's a credit amount. Typically, it is an additional cost for us. It's $2,000, maybe $3,000 at the most. It's in that vicinity.
I think that as we talk about in the past, when we had vehicles that we were retiring, we were taking them off the road and, using them as trade-in or selling them. And we, in the past year or so, we have tended to turn those vehicles over to another department.
Right.
And I think not only ourselves, but the Board of Ed, which is included in this policy, they tend to keep vehicles around and keep them registered, and in fact they really aren't on the road. So maybe this is something that we might want to, during this current year, take a look at and take into consideration.
It's been there might be cars that aren't on the road. I know the police keep a couple of the old ones that come off for replacements in case there's one that's in an accident, they can bring one back up.
Right.
But you're right, they're probably still registered and ready to go. But we've also added vehicles to the fleet for departments that didn't have vehicles
Right.
before,
Right.
which obviously adds to the insurance. They are being used. We are cutting down on our, price per mile, the expense side of things, where we're paying for people to use their personal auto vehicles in the course of business. So we're saving on that end, but yeah, we are paying
Well,
for
that
it,
was
for
a
sure.
policy decision by previous boards, that it was more cost-effective to pay them the mileage
Right.
as opposed to providing a vehicle.
Right.
So we may want to re-examine that and see if in fact that's still true.
Yeah, indeed, and I think we should watch that. Other questions on this? Other
And-
things to highlight?
The health
Anna?
and dental care, I put the increase in at 10% above what we're paying in this premium year. Typically, as we get through the budget cycle, we may be in a position to make a reduction in that account. And that we typically handle at the special Board of Finance meeting after we hold the budget public hearing, because it's at that point in the year that we have better numbers, because it's based on claims. Claims has a direct impact on what our premium's going to be, and that's kind of like done on a 12-month rolling period. So as we go through the budget process, we get more updated information, and we've been fortunate in the past to be able to make reductions. The next account is retirement liability. That's a new account, and the reason that I'm including it in the budget is we have noticed that an employee is planning to retire in July. The employee is in the Commission on Aging department, and as you know from that budget, there's really no wiggle room for them to pick up an amount that large. So that individual is in one of our collective bargaining groups, and per the contract, any if sick leave that you can get paid up to 75% of, over 75%, I think 30 days, 30% of the time that you have on the books. Okay, so it's that plus other accrued leave that the employee has on the books that we anticipate is going to be around that dollar amount.
God bless
So that's
her.
why
Just a
I
long-term
put it
employee who's done her service and leaving. With that warning, we can plan in advance. A lot of times, some of these sudden retirements were caught short in our budgets.
We
certain
wouldn't have the ability,
departments.
and especially in this situation, it's not a large budget, and so.
Can't absorb it.
And I'm looking at the page 124, the pension line.
Mhm. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over that.
Yeah, and I see it's, what percentage are we funded in our pension liability?
We're close to 80% of the accrued liability. The pension, every year we have an actuarial valuation completed, and we do fund in accordance with the valuation. Unfortunately, the valuation is done, typically completed subsequent to the budget process, so I use the information on the latest valuation, which is as of January 1st of 14, and I increased that amount by 5%. I check with the actuary, and was told that was a reasonable projection. And then there's the defined contribution portion as well, and that is, I did a 3% increase over this year's amount. And that's typically up to 7% of salaries for the employees that are in that plan.
And what percentage are in the straight pension as opposed to the defined contribution plan?
The defined benefit plan is all police, all firefighters, members of the administrative maintenance employees bargaining group, which is about 65 employees, our dispatchers, and there are non-affiliated employees on the town side, and I would say that would a good portion, I'm trying to, when was that established? In the late 90s, the defined contribution? Okay, so any unaffiliated employees that were hired prior to the late 90s would be in the defined benefit plan. And then on the Board of Education side, it's their custodial employees, their secretarial employees, and then there's also a group of non-affiliated employees there as well that are in the plan.
Okay, thank you. And is the 80% level about where we're recommended? I mean, it'd be great if we were 100% funded, but we're within a reasonable range.
I believe that we're considered to be very well funded compared to our peers.
Okay.
And the key is that we have our valuation done every year, and we do fund in accordance with the actuary's recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, the other thing is the library employees are in the defined benefit plan as well. I forgot about them.
Thank you, Anne.
Yep. Legal services, I actually, I have a spreadsheet that I keep. I believe it goes back to the 2003-04 fiscal year, and I schedule every year what our expenses are. I take a look at that. I do all kinds of trend analysis to try to do, the best recommended estimates for the accounts and legal services. Unemployment compensation. As a public sector employer, we pay on a case-by-case basis. So if we have claims, we get a bill, and we send in the check every month. In the past few years, we've been doing very low. We've had very small charges. It's typically been for part-time employees that get jobs, leave jobs, and so they're on and off for very small amounts. This year we've been hit very hard. We've got former full-time employees that we're getting billed for.
We do
So
not
that's
get
why,
the
I mean-
surcharge. Municipalities, we checked
Oh.
into that. That was a question you had.
Yes.
We, the municipalities do not get the surcharge
It's
that
only
private sector
Yeah.
people.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Mark.
And
Did you have a
then,
question?
No, that was interesting that you followed up on
Yeah.
that, from last meeting. Yeah.
and I mean,
Thanks.
the other account, they're smaller budget accounts by statute. If someone gets evicted from their apartment, the town is on the hook to store their items, and so we just make a provision for that. Checking the indices by statute, we're required to have someone come in and audit the records that are filed in the town clerk's office. We have an employee assistance program, and we typically make a provision for professional development and management training to handle costs that may go outside of what individual departments have in their budgets. And then the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments and CCM and various other municipal organizations, that's the amount of dues we pay to them. In the backup, there's a list of what they actually are and how much we're paying. And then there's a provision every couple of years where we go through and reprint the ordinances of the town. I don't know if anyone has any questions on any of the items.
Questions down the line? Mark, anything?
No.
Mrs. Hardy? How about this side? Good. Thank you, Anna. Is revenue next?
Yes, sir.
Okay, guess what you get?
Revenue.
Revenue, handouts. Sorry,
Mark,
I
I
don't
do
have
have
it.
one question on something else.
Oh, boy,
Too late.
the new guy.
The,
What was your
Under-
question?
just a 115 community service.
It's not listed on here.
Just 924 historical society asked for 2250 and
I'm
just
sorry.
2500. Is that
Wait.
intentional?
You're talking community service, budget
Historical
150.
society. The request was 2250 in the letter that was in here.
Just about every one of these departments these requests were higher than what we typically fund. You know,
No,
some of them-
the request was less.
Oh,
Do it
if
to
I
bring it on.
can, I
Which-
can comment on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so what that represents is the Historical Society, and then a provision for the, we have the new group.
Smith House?
Yes, so there's some funding, $250 in the event that they need supplies or something like that. They actually wanted us to develop
Separate
a
budget.
separate department for
a
them.
tab.
And so last year, we said, you know what, we'll put a token amount in the Historical Society, because the overall goal at some point would get them to be, all come under one commission
One,
anyway,
yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that's why that's there.
I have a backup in my email for that. I didn't realize that's where it was.
Okay,
So,
just saw that one pass. Thanks.
thank you. Any other departments before we go into revenue? Well, actually, we don't have them listed, so we don't really. Our special meeting has a very specific agenda that we're supposed to stick to. So, revenue accounts, Ms. Johnson. Do you want to hit the highlights, and then we can ask questions on the lowlights?
Just, no, use your handout. We can just pick out the ones that we want.
Sure. Any questions then?
Yeah, just if I may, the account that's, it's under the second highlighted revenue account. It's
Local capital?
the Youth Services Bureau grant.
Okay.
That's listed at $27,215. And when Mr. Putnam was here, he indicated that the $6,250 portion of that grant amount is at risk. It's not included in the governor's budget. So that's just something we need to kind of keep an eye on as we go through the budget process. We may need to make a reduction there. And then the two accounts that I have highlighted, Town Aid Road Assistance and Local Capital Improvement, those, the amount of $340,837 is what's currently proposed in the governor's budget. What we would need to do to project that revenue would be to increase that line item in Department 317 that we spoke about when Mr. Begrar was here. So that's something that's kind of up in the air at this point. And then the local capital improvement, we had put a projection in of, I believe, $123,000, and the governor's budget shows it at $118,828. So there could be differences in those accounts. And then I don't know if you have any questions on other ones.
At the Board of Education meeting the other night, board members asked about the incoming money for the Chinese program that is going to be at the high school with tuition students, and they wanted to find that money, that grant money in their budget. And they were told that that money comes directly to the town. And I didn't recall in Pat, this must be a new account.
Okay, if you want to look at page 2 of the revenue report, and if you go down, it's about the 6th or 7th account from the top.
Tuition other districts?
Yes.
Yes, that's, okay, so that's the tuition that we receive for out-of-district students is budgeted for in that line item. And for next year, the proposed amount is $3,096,416, which is an increase of the projected amount in this fiscal year's budget of a little over $250,000.
So it's in there.
I mean, I would expect
I-
that's where it's included. I can specifically ask that question. I can contact the board and
Well,
ask that
if this is
question.
being paid by a contracted service, shouldn't that appear as a line item in our budget if that is coming to the town?
You know, I would view it as out-of-district tuition. I mean, in a sense, it's similar to, we have a contract with the town of Salem for their students that they send here, and,
Well, that's another town agency, it's not a private entity, which, in this case, that tuition's being paid by a private entity.
But anyone who lives outside East Lyme who opts to send their child to this school district is a private entity, and that appears in just the general tuition line.
it's all in the general tuition. There are some other students, in addition to students that come from Salem to this district. It's a handful or so. It's not a lot of students, but there are some other out-of-district tuitions that we do receive.
Okay, so when this is reported to you as grant money, this does not come into your office as a separate amount of money. This is sent by the Board of Education office as a block amount of money. What the Board of Education is trying to figure out is how much money is actually coming from this outside organization. And when the question was asked, they were simply told that the money had to come to the town. So, do you understand what they were asking? And so now it's sort of morphed into this, and I think that then the chairman of the board will have to ask specifically for that to be broken out if that's what they want to do. And that's what I'll tell them.
They may include it in the budget, when they send over their proposed budget document, they may include a list of what the 3 million comprises of, like Salem students,
We're gonna ask
Chinese
them for that.
students, students from other districts besides the Chinese. And
Okay.
Here's something I didn't know, because Roseanne, I was in the audience there. You were representing as ex officio. They weren't really sure how many Chinese students are coming.
10.
Well, 6 to 10, right? 10 max. Are they proposing 10 in this number? And if they're proposing 10 and 6 show up, 6 tuition-paying students show up, then of course we're going to get 15,000 a kid, so $60,000 less in our revenue accounts. They still get the Board of Ed still gets their check for their full budget. The town will suffer a $60,000 loss. The Board of Ed won't see any difference, so they could always project high. It would be depending on all that tuition money coming in. If it comes in lower, it's our loss, not theirs.
Well, I think that that's probably something that I should
We'll follow
I
up
should
on it.
discuss with the chair of the board,
Of
education.
yes,
And if that's what they want, is they want this broken out separately so that it's very clear what percentage this is, then I think that that's up to them to then discuss with Anna how they'd like to see
Right.
this shown.
right.
And of course, the money that is being paid also is not all tuition money. And so the question that the board was asking is, where is that money?
Where's the beef?
It's 15,000 a student roughly, but there's other money coming from
Correct.
China?
Correct.
From the service
Yeah.
that
Right.
represents
Yeah,
the
they
China
talk about
kids,
that,
okay.
So I think that.
Yeah,
I
they
think
need
the
to break it down.
The responsibility is on their end, not ours.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.